activities. It is not without its challenges. However, the members of the force went above and beyond their normal duties to ensure the safety of those we serve. We provided support with appointment of several officers to numerous communities. These include the COVID-19 Advisory Committee chaired by the Minister of Health and Wellness, the National Emergency Operating Center, NEOC, which operates from ADPEM headquarters, the PSOJ Care Package Distribution Task Force. We have also activated a COVID-19 Command and Control Center on March 18, 2020 at the JCF headquarters. The center operates on a 24-hour basis and is always commanded by a senior officer. There are 4 dedicated hotlines that deals with COVID-19 related incidents from the public, and it also provides support to our police officers on duty. Since its inception, the center has received over 2,000 calls from concerned citizens and has dispatched police response to 497 COVID-related incidents. Enforcement of the Disaster Risk Management Act. Our enforcement includes monitoring of curfews, ensuring members of the public keep their physical distances, and these are like places like beaches, funerals, social gatherings, and even in churches. The wearing of masks in public. Lockdown of communities under quarantine. So far, we have provided duties in Bull Bay, St. Andrew, Corn Peace in Clarendon. We were in Portmore during the lockdown. Recently, we were in Enfield, Dover, and Anato Bay in St. Mary. We continue to provide support to facilities which are utilized for quarantine. And currently, we have our members deployed at the Bahia Principal Hotel and also at a facility in Kingston. We provide special escorts for different groups of arriving passengers at our air and seaports. We also provide escorts for persons from quarantine location to their places of residence island-wide. Now, let me speak about our ongoing operational activities. COVID-19 has certainly not relieved us of our day-to-day policing responses to call for service. We continue to respond to requests for service island-wide. These include responding to acts of criminalities, domestic violence and disputes, traffic control and accidents, and other calls to service. We continue to monitor 7 states of public emergency and 2 zones of special operations. We continue to see the benefit of these security enhanced measures. In fact, earlier on this year, Kingston East had a severe flare-up of violence and murders. And with the implementation of the state of public emergency on January 27th, we have seen a significant reduction in the number of murders committed in that police division. We do have some areas of concern currently. One of these at the moment is Augustown. We have recently seen some flare-up of violence in Augustown, which has forced us to deploy additional resources into that community. Also, we do have concerns about ongoing criminal activities in areas within Kingston Western Division and the St. Andrew South Division. In closing, I want to take this opportunity to appeal to members of the public and citizens of Jamaica to continue to give us their full support as we continue to do our best to bring peace to Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Despite the crisis brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic and the additional demands for police service from all members of the JCF, investigators, while supporting the national COVID effort, remained focused on their primary goals, which are to detect and solve crimes in a bid to keep the people of Jamaica safe. Between January 1st and May 31st, 2020, 2,325 major crimes were recorded by the police. This is in comparison to 2,621. This represents a reduction of 269 or 11%. As was indicated by the Commissioner, all major crimes are down. In terms of our murder data, we recognize that significant numbers of victims were affiliated to gangs in inter- and intra-gang conflict. We also observe that domestic-related and interpersonal violence played a significant role in the amount of murders that were committed for this year. And the Commissioner highlighted some of the situations that actually involved or resulted in murder. Persons fighting over a few battles, and person being killed, as was indicated, over Easter bun. Then we have a significant amount of the victims that were affiliated to gangs. Other recognizable factors include persons being killed because the killer could not catch the main target. In other words, victims were at the wrong place at the wrong time. And others were killed because of family relation, affiliation to gangs. We have also identified a series of multiple murders committed in pursuit of other criminal activities, such as purchasing of guns or drugs. In fact, there are at least 4 such incidents since recent times. In one of those incidents, at least 4 persons were killed. Some of the major wins for us include a 41% clear-up rate for major crimes. And I must point out at this time that we have employed an investigative strategy which involved greater capacity building for the investigators, improved case management system, case conferences and reviews, as well as linked investigations. As a result of that, we are seeing better prepared cases, more arrests and convictions. In fact, the DPP and other persons in the criminal justice system have actually attested to the fact that they are seeing better prepared cases being brought before the court, and the conviction rate as well as guilty plea It is to be noted that 202 persons were charged for 237 counts of murder, and 20 persons or 10% charged with multiple incidents. So that is suggesting to us that we have a group of people who continue to perpetrate crimes right across the island. We are focusing on a number of cold cases, and when you look at the data, 800 of the persons charged within the period were charged for historical crimes. That is crime dating back to 2001. And one of the celebrated cases that we have is a case involving Tetra Miller of the Clans gang. He was charged in 2018 and convicted 2019. A total of, in terms of updates on some of our investigations, a total of 20 statements have been recorded in the Jody and Ferran matter. The investigation is well advanced. Significant amount of evidence have been secured, and we're at a stage where the file is now being prepared for submission to the offices of the Director of Public Prosecution for their advice. In terms of the Dean matter, we still continue to pursue that investigation. 2 persons were charged in relation to the cellular phone
that all elements of the selection process for recruitment will be in trade. We have obtained license and permissions for the use of auditoriums at some of our learning institutions that are large enough to facilitate social distancing for the administering of written examinations. Our medical services branch, by then, will be ready and will commence medical examinations. All other aspects of the selection process are currently engaged, including interviews which are done utilizing online options. We want to reassure the public that we will do all we can to ensure that we have people that are well trained and equipped to serve, protect, and reassure the people in Jamaica. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for those contributions. I think the main thing that we want to get done today is really to give you an opportunity to ask some questions that we will be able to to answer. We just wanted to give an initial brief overview of what is happening, what we've been doing. Of course, this is not even slightly exhaustive. There's so much more going on, but we thought we'd highlight some of the things and then allow your questions to cause us to answer or fill out the gaps. In what we're trying to communicate here. So, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, and good day to our friends in the media. At this time, we're going to be taking your questions, so you can indicate by the raised hand feature, and you can put your questions through. There are a few questions that have been sent to us already, so we will, as much as possible, based on the questions that you ask, we will. We have several resource persons here who can help us to answer them. Do we have a question from the media at this time? We have Laverne Barrett. Laverne, can you speak? Let's just check to make sure that we are hearing you clearly.
Good afternoon, Dennis. Are you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Commissioner, and to the Deputy Commissioners and other senior officers of the ATF. I have three quick questions. One, on December 1 last year, carried an article about the police inspector who was assigned to the St. Andrews South Division, who was allowed to resign rather than face criminal charges for acting on an investigation, allegation that he tipped off and police operation. The said at the time that the number of inaccuracies that the investigation was ongoing. Today, however, the told what those inaccuracies are. Neither has there been an investigation. Can you indicate now, Commissioner, or whichever officer takes the question, can you indicate, can you publicly identify the police inspector, and can you give the public an update on will the JCF be recommending to the government states of emergency now in place be continued, or will there be new ones? And lastly, can you indicate why after almost 2 years there's been no arrest or charges for the killing of a man inside the home of Attorney at Law Antony? Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Laverne, for future reference, during the course of the press conference, you will ask one question. We will answer that question and then give other persons a chance to ask their questions. Trust me, we will get back to your questions. Sure.
Okay, Laverne, thank you for those questions. If I need to ask you to repeat any of them, I will. I think the first one was about an article from December last year. Am I correct? Right. Yes, about an inspector who was allowed to resign rather than face criminal charges. Right. So just on the upfront, resigning does not absolve you of criminal matters, whether you're in or out of the force. Is an administrative function, and the criminal investigation is a criminal matter. In terms of the states of emergency, I think that was the second the second one. Just pulling up our current figures around that, because I think that's important. Let me just pull that up a second here. In murders of 48% and in shootings of 39%. In Hanover, murder is down 56% and shootings down 67%. In St. James, interestingly enough, we are seeing an increase, but we're comparing two SOEs with each other. But let me add, St. James has the lowest rate of homicides there in the last, I think, 17 years. Last year was the lowest in, I think, about 17 to 20 years, or early this year. Clarendon is down 38% on homicides and 39% on shootings when compared with the prior to SOE levels. Kingston Eastern, if you remember, that was a significantly violent circumstance that was taking place, I think, late last year into early this year. Since the state of emergency has been in place, we have had a 68% drop in murders and a 72% drop in shootings. In St. Andrews South, we are 5%, we've had a 5% drop in murders and an 18% drop in shootings. So I think the example, perhaps the example of St. James is the most relevant one to these questions that were being asked. And St. James has used the time, it's the most mature area that has had a state of emergency. It was the first one that was implemented in, I think, early 2018. So St. James. We have been involved in almost every aspect of community life, and what that has led to is double the number of gun recoveries of the next highest parish. So they, in effect, have, I think, to date, recovered 56 or 58 weapons, including a number of assault rifles. And they have been aided in this process in various with community support, with good intelligence, with the use of CCTV cameras. Their response time has gotten better, significantly so. There was a recent killing on Jimmy Cliff Boulevard, and the response time to capture those persons was 7.5 minutes. The quick reaction team down there, the response team, has been very effective in what they're doing. They've closed the space on the persons who want to do crimes, but there's still challenges. And the fact of the matter is, we still use certain provisions under that legislation to give us the best effect. If you remember, a state of public emergency is not a deployment. It is a piece of legislation that permits us to do certain things that are critical in a high violence situation to bring it initially under control. So that's the figures that, any figure that we're quoted will be available afterwards. The team at Communications will be providing a press pack so that these numbers are available to persons so you can check them yourselves and go through them. I think the third one was... The third one was, Mr. Bailey, would you like to comment on the third one?
The investigation in relation to the murder at the residence of Mr. Patrick Bailey, attorney at law, is not dead. It is actively being pursued. We have had several case reviews since the beginning of this year, and I know that there is a pending case review. I don't have the date. We continue to pursue that investigation. I don't think I can say much more on that at this time, but it is still actively being pursued.
Thank you very much, Acting DCP Bailey. Our next question will come from... Can we just get... We see Brittany Clark's hand up.
possible where I'm at. But my question is that child sexual abuse cases are
I'm, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the beginning of your question?
okay, yes. So a media house reported that child sexual abuse cases in Jamaica are up by approximately 50% during the COVID-19 pandemic. So at the Jamaica Constabulary Report, we have looked at that increase in the sexual abuse cases and how does the how does the COVID-19 period of March 10 to May 31 compare with the previous year in relation to child sexual abuse? How does it compare to last year?
How does it compare to the period last year? We'd have to speak definitively to those numbers, and we don't have them prepared at this time. Generally speaking, you will find in the statistics pack that we will provide that rape is down year on year, but we will check those specific numbers for.
So if we look at police fatal shootings and we look last year figures, it was the lowest fatal shooting rate in Jamaica for 40 years. And this year is trending just about a similar way or a little below. So if that is so, and I haven't fact-checked what Indicom said with respect to that, and it may be high with respect to the world, but so is our homicide rate, particularly with the use of the gun. Now, I think perhaps a more pertinent question would be, of those police fatal shootings, how many of them are questionable? And on investigation, how many of them are recommended for charges, for criminal charges? So the pursuit of police work. So in effect, if you look at the number of persons charged in these fatal shootings, this lower level of fatal shootings, it was 2 in effect for police-involved shootings on duty. Now that tells a different story. These are not my numbers. These are Indicom's numbers. Now that suggests that at least in 80 of 82 cases, or 78, 28 of 82 cases. What is written there normally is that there's no charge or disciplinary action recommended. Occur ever? Possibly. But we move quickly when we see those gaps to fix them and to ensure that it gets lesser and lesser, and these matters are resolved as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Have a question from Raquel Porter of Radio Jamaica News, who asks, Councillor for the Papine Division, Venetia Phillips, has indicated that she is not in favor of curfew in Augustown following the upsurge in violence. Ms. Phillips is calling for an anti-crime strategy. What is your response to her comment?
Okay, thank you. So a curfew is really just a tool that is available to us under the Constabulary Force Act. There's another tool, the cordon and search. There are a series of tools, and then of course we also have enhanced measures. For somewhere that has been problematic in terms of violence, as long as Augustown has, where they had a brief respite in 2016, I think it was, where there was a year where there wasn't a lot of killing, or there wasn't any killing. 2018, was it? Sorry, 2018. But this is not a recent phenomenon there, and it's on us to use a range of strategies, of which curfews are one, to address this problem. At the high end are those high-intensity deployments through in the area when things are problematic, when things are live at the time, when people are trying to kill each other. At that point, we put in curfews, we do cordons, we put in more officers in the space. But it's everything from there all the way down to community intervention that ultimately will give us the outcomes we want. What we need in Augustown is a seed change in terms of how people deal with violence, and a lot of this violence has taken place over a long time. There are gangs that operate there. We are doing work on those gangs. We have done work with them on the past, but it becomes generational. So it's not curfew or other policing methods. It is all of them combined, done in a coherent way to get the results we want. Thanks, Raquel.
All right, I gather Kirk Wright from TVJ would like to ask a question. Kirk Wright, can you unmute your mic so that we can hear you?
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Good. So, my colleague Giovanni Denny in the story last night leads to lockup in Sagamar and prisoners or some inmates getting keys to other lockups while they themselves are not. I suppose the police have started an investigation into that. What are your findings so far? And another quick question. DCP Blake mentioned an upsurge in violence in Western Kingston, but there's also an upsurge in Central Kingston too. Many of the killings happen between two divisions. Remember too that there are soldiers stationed in Western Kingston, and this violence is happening right around. Are there any plans to change the structure of the security apparatus in those two divisions?
All right, I'll invite these. Kirk, could you? We weren't hearing you clearly in relation to the Western Kingston question. You mentioned two specific problematic divisions. Could you?
So in the market district, the market district, in probably the last 2 weeks or more, there have been several killings. West Street, thereabouts, some gang violence happening, and it's happening in Western Kingston and Central Kingston, because the two big divisions are the Sheridan Market District. That has been happening for some time. There are soldiers in Western Kingston, and these guys running around. Violence is happening around them. These soldiers, they'll tell you that they can't move from their static post. Yet killings are happening almost beside their post. So I'm asking, are there plans to change the security arrangements downtown to cap the violence happening there?
DC. Blake.
Thank you very much for that question, Kirk. Certainly, the reason why I mentioned those two divisions, Kingston Western, and you included Kingston Central and also Augustone, is a recognition by us that at present those communities have ongoing gang warfare and they continue to challenge us. In terms of a changing strategy, I will not tell you exactly what we have done. Suffice to say that we have significantly increased our deployment in those spaces. And yes, we are doing some things differently in response to these gang warfare. And we expect to see a reduction in these killings. And the situation being brought under control based on what we have planned currently.
As it relates to the other question though, with the lockups, inmates getting keys to other persons' lockup, what are your investigations showing so far? We got that story last night.
I'm not aware of the details of that story. I don't know if anyone else can speak to it. Just a moment, Kurt.
Sure.
All right, Kirk, I thank you for your question on behalf of Giovanni. What I would ask is that we be allowed to probe those specific points that he raised, because we're not familiar with the story, we didn't see it, and so we wouldn't want to speak off the cuff. So we can grant him a conversation, an interview specifically about that, once we're up to speed with that. Can we agree to that, Kirk?
Sure. Any update on Jasmine Dean? Some other ones just been missing, I think. Any updates on that?
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Bailey to respond to that specifically.
As I indicated earlier on, that matter is still under investigation. 2 persons were charged in relation to a debit card that was found in one of the person's possession. And we are still pursuing that investigation. We have done several activities in terms of lines of inquiry. We went somewhere in eastern Kingston based on certain information we received, and a particular area was searched using cadaver dogs and other equipment, but unfortunately we never came up with anything. But the investigation continues.
Thank you.
All right, I have another question from Raquel Porter. Can the Commissioner respond directly to Indicom's claim that the JCF, I beg your pardon, this is not from Raquel Porter, this is from Arthur Hall. If you can respond directly to Indicom's claim that the JCF is obstructing its operation.
The short answer is no, that as an organization we are certainly not obstructing the independent commission. As I say, I gave the numbers, and the reason why I gave them is because they tell a story in the numbers. There's no way you can get through all of those without support from the JCF, without the JCF making their members available, and without being a part of those investigations. Normally when these investigations occur, our own internal branch, iProbe, becomes a part of that and assists that process. Our legal office does also. If there are specific cases, and as I say, as far as I know, the numbers we got was that we have 5 cases with respect to identity parades, and there may be, and in terms of documents being made available to the independent commission, we have protocols around that. If people are breaching the protocols, we just need to know, and we can deal with it. But as an organization, it not only is it a matter of law that we support what Indicom wants within the law, of course, within the bounds of their own act and other legislation that exists, but the results of those quite often leads to us being exonerated for matters independently, and I think that's the important part of things. I think the public benefits from this independence, and also we do. So largely our relationship with the team at Indicom is really good.
Is there any reporter who has a question who has not been called upon up to this point?
Sure. So, Kirk, I think there was you had asked about the case down in Savlamar. If it's the same one that's captured in the Indicom report, it is a 2014 case. It's actually in the report. It's a 2014 case. If you need us to, we could probably dig up what happened in that case, but it's a 2014 case. That's why we were kind of at a loss because you said last night. Maybe the story was carried last night, but it was, when I look back in the Indicom report, it's actually a 2014 case.
All right, but if you could provide us with any additional information as to your
Sure.
investigations.
No, absolutely. I mean, something like that should have been resolved sometime back then, but we'll see what it is and give a response to it.
Commissioner, while you're at the podium though, I was told by a senior police officer recently that, forgive me, I don't remember the name of the program where call and report matters. Say a gun is at a certain location and somebody called in and gun is found and money is given. I was told that some police first hijacked that system and it had stopped. Are you aware of that?
What we have done, the process that we have in place to deal with all of those matters is through Crime Stop. We have an ongoing collaboration with Crime Stop, and that's the best way. It has always worked. Nobody, as far as we know, has been compromised through that process, and it's a very structured and laid down process.
Let me be clear though. When persons called to say that they, when police went to the scenes and found guns, they would actually come up. Somebody had called, they went and picked it up, and then they would, the police officers would, the money from that.
I'm not aware of that. It's certainly not been in recent times. That certainly hasn't been the case in recent times, so I'm unaware of it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no persons who are yet to be called upon, I have a question from Raquel Porter who says, do you believe that gunmen are using COVID-19 distraction to their advantage in committing crimes?
I mean, the truth is that persons who are involved in criminal activities will try and use anything possible to their advantage. And unfortunately, in Jamaica, obviously, we have a lot of people involved in particularly violent crime. So what we saw over the COVID period, particularly with the curfews that were in place based on the disaster risk management orders, is that we saw the violent crime band shift to that space just before the curfew starts, or a couple of hours. We saw a crime band shift to the morning period, etc. So one of the challenges we face, and this is not unique to Jamaica, if you look at the figures elsewhere, places like El Salvador and so on, you see the similar things. The threat of COVID-19 doesn't affect violence that much. People who are bent on doing violence and doing harm to others find whatever space they can to carry out their acts. So the solutions, again, we spoke about it a little earlier. This virus of violence is something that we're going to have to deal with in a significant way as a society, because it's impacting everything we do. So yes, you will have gunmen who try to use the space given, the fact that we're deployed on a series of COVID-19 operations that stretch our existingly stretched resources. They've tried to use that space. For the most part, we have responded to stop that from creating a runaway in terms of violence and crime. So we've pretty much held it and kept the, to borrow a term, the curve flat with respect to homicides, even though they've tried.
All right, are there any other questions that reporters may have had that are outstanding? I see no hands up, so at this time I'm going to call upon SSP Steph